It seems that Russia-Ukraine war will now be remembered more for the turmoil on Russia's soil than the developments on the front line. Even though the war in which the Wagner Group targeted Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu and Russian Chief of General Staff Valeri Gerasimov ended in a short time, anti-occupation Russian organizations have started to make statements that we will continue this war. While the successful offensive of the Ukrainian army are forcing the Russian invaders to lose on the front line, developments on the Russian soil are also challenging Putin's power. According to British press, Wagner Group leader Yevgeni Prigozhin stopped the war against Shoigu and Gerasimov because his family was threatened. Prigozhin said that this move they started was not the war, but a march for justice. According to him, the Wagner Group have withdrawn to avoid the blood of Russian citizens. A new one has been added to these developments that seems to occupy the agenda for a long time. The Russian Freedom Legion seems to be preparing for a new uprising. The Pioneer team continues to report the developments in Russia. You can click the Super Thanks button below to support our team. If you're ready, let's evaluate the latest developments together. The Russian Legion of Freedom and the Russian Volunteer Union announced their support for the war launched by the Wagner Group. The Legion said that they were enemies with the Prigozhin at the front line, but that the Wagner Group should be supported in this war. Because according to the Legion, what Prigozhin said about Shoigu and Gerasimov was true. In a post on its Telegram account, the Russian Freedom Legion announced its participation in the war targeting the Russian Defense Minister and the Russian Chief of General Staff as follows. On the battlefield, we are enemies with Prigozhin, but now he's telling the truth. About how cowardly generals sent hundreds of thousands of Russians to their death as cannon fodder. Soldiers, officers, your time has come. Turn your weapons on the Kremlin's towers. Do not let the Ukrainians, the deaths of thousands of the Russians at the front line and the return home, to the place where you need it now. Among those who declared their support for Prigozhin was the Russian Volunteer Union. Denis Nikitin, commander of the Russian Volunteer Corps, which is fighting for the liberation of Russia for Putin's rule and the immediate end for the occupation of Ukraine, expressed his support for the war launched by the Wagner Group as follows. I'm sincerely cheering for the success of Prigozhin's missions, because the bloody Kremlin regime can be overthrown in only one way, an armed rebellion. And Prigozhin has raided this rebellion. The Russian Volunteer Corps fighters who are in Russia have been mobilized. They are ready to help liberate Russia from a bloody triumph. I think that the Russian Volunteer Corps troops are bringing our joint victory closer on the both sides of borders. After the withdrawal of Prigozhin, who also received the support of anti-occupation organization in Russia, it was wondered what decision this organization would take. With Prigozhin withdrawal, had all the groups opposing Putin and the occupation of Ukraine ceased to exist? The commander-in-chief of the General Freedom Legion, nicknamed Caesar, recently answered this question. Caesar made striking statements in an interview with a British media outlet. According to Caesar's statements, the Legion is preparing for a new rebellion. Let's evaluate Commander Caesar's statements together. Caesar, the leader of the Russian Freedom Legion, stated that the Wagner Group rebellion clearly revealed that Russian leader Vladimir Putin is exhausted. In Caesar's word, the rebellion exposed all the cracks in the rotten state of Putin and his army. Unlike Prigozhin, Caesar's target was Putin. Caesar said that they would not turn back from the uprising to liberate Russia from Putin's dictatorship and that no one could stop them when they marched for it. Because according to Caesar, the members of the Legion were not afraid of anything for this cause. We fear nothing. It's only a matter of time before our flag flies over Kremlin. Caesar said, adding that Putin's rule will end in the near future. Caesar predicted that Russia will have a new leader by the end of next year and said that this is what people want. He said that Russian people provide information and financial support to the members of the Legion. In an interview with the British press, Caesar said, "With decisive action, it is possible to seize it. It's time to understand we have to put an end to Putin's regime. Otherwise, he will drag the entire planet with him into hell. We are Russia's only hope for liberation and the only force that can put an end to this nightmare. We want to stop the war and then clean up our country, so it no longer behaves like a mad dog that runs around and trying to bite its neighbors. We are gathering around strength and getting ready. We are not afraid of anything and no one will stop us, neither Putin's nuclear weapons, nor Prigozhin's or Kadyrov or Rosgvardia. it's just a question of time before our banner is flying above the Kremlin. An uprising against Putin by the Russian Freedom Legion and other anti-occupation groups seems imminent. In addition to the Wagner uprising, Putin may be shaken by a new blow as he ponders how to compensate for these losses of military personnel and ammunition at the front, because the negative effects of the occupation of Ukraine are increasing day by day. The deaths of more than 200,000 Russian citizens on the front line and the sanctions imposed by Western and European countries have turned the Russian people against Putin. Russia's economy has also declined significantly after both sanctions and recent uprising. After the Wagner Group uprising, the Russian ruble hit 15-month low against the dollar. The ruble has lost about 13% of its value against the dollar this year, making it one of the worst-performing currencies among emerging markets worldwide. This has negatively affected the economy of the Russian people. It seems that the economy problems of the people who have problems in accessing many materials due to the sanctions will increase even more with the depreciation of the ruble. However, the Russian people have lost friends, relatives, and loved ones in the war that has been going on for about 15 months. Despite these losses, almost no gains have been achieved. For this reason, the people want the occupation of Ukraine to stop as soon as possible and support the anti-occupation organizations. It seems impossible for Putin to emerge successfully from his turmoil. Having failed to gain popular support before the invasion of Ukraine, Putin has suffered a setback in many ways, both in the army and at home. The war almost turned into Ukraine's favor, because according to statements of anti-occupation organizations, it seems that uprising in Russia will continue. A bad end awaits Russian leader Vladimir Putin, who is being cornered day by day. Do you think there will be a new coup attempt by anti-occupation groups in Russia? If the Russian people support the Russian Freedom Legion, will Putin fall from power? Why doesn't Putin give up the war against Ukraine even though he hasn't made any gains? What are your thoughts on the course of the developments in Russia and the frontline? We are curious about your views. Follow us for more updates.